Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. Before we're joined by today's guests, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation today is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. So if you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce from the cast of Apple TV Plus's For All Mankind, Shantel VanSanten, Wrenn Schmidt, Cynthy Wu, Peña, and Sonya Walger. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
This is an audience of your fellow SAG-AFTRA actors. So I actually always like to start at the beginning by asking, how did you get your SAG card? What was the job or the gig that brought you that card? And then let's start with Sonya, because she's next to me.
Mine was probably the most circuitous journey because I'm English, so it was a real thing to get my SAG card. Because we have a different, we have equity in England, and so my SAG card came with my first American job, which was Mind of the Married Man. It was an HBO show that I did too many years ago to number, but a lot of years ago, and it was my first thing, and it was so exciting and so thrilling and so exotic, so incredibly exotic, and felt so glamorous to be English and have a SAG card. It felt like, that's right, sure, I work in America now. It was very cool.
Shantel, what about for you?
Goodness, I feel like, my story maybe is kind of more generic, but I had booked 3 national commercials and was keeping myself afloat, living in Los Angeles, paying my bills by doing commercials and going out on auditions. And I think it was on the 3rd one, which was for Clean and Clear. And I had to get my SAG card and join the union. And I remember it was a big day, even if it wasn't for like the dream job or, a bigger acting role. It was still being able to join a union made me feel like I officially had arrived in Los Angeles in this industry.
And I just want to say I am a big fan of Clean and Clear. It got me through my teen years. So.
Through my 20s, so.
Okay, if I'm being honest, I still use it. Coral, what about for you?
Oh gosh, the new, back in the day in New York, I feel like Law and Order was how you got your SAG card, but the new thing that's happening, and this was right out of college, is Blue Bloods. It's like every single kid coming out of college gets a job on Blue Bloods. So I had a job where the character was like 9 months pregnant. I had a really big fake belly. And it was lovely. But yeah, it felt like I officially made it as a New York actor because now I'm on Blue Bloods.
Did you ever end up doing a Law and Order?
No, and it's still on my list of things I want to do. It just feels like a rite of passage. Like, yeah. Okay, gotta do Law and Order. Yeah, one day.
Cynthy, what about for you?
I got my SAG card from my first union commercial booking, which was for Hyundai. Hyundai cars, and I think I played like a seamstress's assistant. Not even a seamstress. I stood there with like measuring tape, and that was it. It was really exciting. It was my first union job, and I was getting to get my SAG card. I was stoked.
I feel like I know this commercial when you're talking about measuring. Were you measuring the car?
We were measuring clothing, but I don't know how it was connected to the car. There's a wonderful actress with red hair, Jane. She was, I remember her because it was my first commercial. So Jane, maybe you know her. She's a working actress. She's got fabulous red hair.
I think I do know who you're talking about. I don't know her, but I've definitely seen her in things.
Yeah.
Wrenn, what about for you?
I don't remember.
That's fine.
I know that I had done a couple of jobs and was at the point where I had to
join SAG, which is very exciting. And I just remember palpably being terrified of paying those initial fees, whatever the initial kind of dues are that you have to pay. Uh, yeah, that's what I remember, which I feel like that, like I'm been sitting here terrified, like that you were going to get to me and I wasn't going to remember, but I don't know.
As long
Whoa.
as your dues are all paid up, it's good.
They are. I can say that.
Then you
Yeah.
can stay.
Good. Thank you.
Well, this brings us to For All Mankind, and this series comes from the creative genius of Ronald D. Moore and just finished its second season with a jaw-dropping finale. But I'd actually love to go back to the beginning and ask, how did you first sort of become aware of this project, and what interested you in being a part of it? And I guess we'll start with the people who have been there since season one. Wrenn, for you?
It was it was kind of the standard audition. I got the script, read it, was super curious about working on the material. And then once I was actually working on the sides, I was like, oh man, I want this job. I really, really, really want this job. And I just kind of spent a whole weekend trying to figure out what was what and just the sides alone, because it was all of the really technical stuff that was happening during Sims, where everyone in mission control is kind of practicing for what happens if, this happens and what happens if this happens. And you just kind of have to think on the fly. So I just remember being in our tiny 1-bedroom apartment in the bedroom working on it. And then I would like run out to take a break and get really nerdy with my now husband. And I'd be like, Steve, did you know this about space? And then I'd be like, okay, I have to go back to work. Yeah, I just had a lot of fun making the tape. So I was really excited about even the possibility of being in contention. So yeah, and I loved the script and I loved the character. Yeah.
I mean, how much did they tell you about the character in advance? Did you know she was going to have this amazing arc, or was it just sort of the pilot script?
No, it was just the first script, and it was the I don't know how well you know the show, but it's one of the first scenes, I think, where they're doing a sim and Margot's in like the back room and there's this alarm, the 1202 alarm, and nobody else knows what it is, not even the astronauts. And Margot's like, yeah, it was that scene. And then the scene where Margot's being interviewed by Gene Kranz to become Fido. Yeah, it was those two scenes.
Oh, wow. Shantel, what about for you? And I'm also curious because you share so many scenes with the great Joel Kinnaman. Did you know that you would be playing opposite him?
I knew nothing. So I was coming off of being on a TV show for 3 years that was on USA, and it was my first audition back. And they gave me 2 scenes from the first episode and no script. And it was like, we're going to have you go in the room tomorrow. And it was like 11 pages of dialogue. Oh. And I said, no, I'm having a panic attack. I'm going to fail. I can't handle this. I'm going to put it on tape at home and I'll send it over. And very ballsy of me, but I just felt as though that's where I would thrive best, is if I just had time to work on the material and not the pressure of the room and getting the dialogue right. And I ended up taping those 2 scenes and sending it over. And they said, you're going to come in tomorrow and meet with the director. I mean, I knew nothing other than what was in these 2 scenes. I knew it was an Apple TV show. I knew it was Ron Moore, and I knew the 2 scenes. And I went in and read, and it was the worst audition of my life. I left. I went to the Science Natural Museum. I'm a big space buff, and I literally was standing underneath the Endeavour, which is where we had our season 1 wrap party, full circle. And I got a call from my manager and said, your lawyer's on the call, which usually means you booked the job. And I'm like, no effing way. Like, this is a joke. Like, that was the worst audition of my entire life. I wrote on the wall with a highlighter. Like, that's what happened in my own nervousness. So it was a mess. And they told me I booked it. And I said, that's great. What did I book? What exactly is this? What's the role? I don't, other than these scenes, really understand. And they gave me the script. And Wrenn, you'll enjoy this. I've never told anybody. I read it and I was like, I don't want to play Karen. She's a Karen. Like, I want to play Margot. Margot's a badass. Like, that's who I want to play. Is Margot already cast? And they're like, actually, everybody's cast. And I'm like, what? They're like, everybody is cast, but your role, it starts working on Monday, and this is Friday. And I mean, it was a whirlwind. Like, I was on the sets, walking through, doing fittings, everything by that Monday. And I kind of took a leap of faith in it. And, you know, I again, just like Wrenn, I don't know if any of us really know a lot of our journey, because the writers like to play and shift and change it. So I didn't have any idea what a wild ride I was going to be on with Karen whatsoever.
I mean, I kind of understand where you're coming from, because on paper, you might just think Karen is the wife.
Yeah.
But then she grows even in the first season and is so fascinating. Was there a moment where you sort of realized that, you know, you loved Karen?
I really did. I mean, I have said all along that the biggest thing I learned in the first year was empathy, because I really didn't like Karen. I didn't like her viewpoints. I didn't like what she thought about women. She's not a feminist. She's conservative. She's all these things that me, myself, are not. And I had to learn to love her. I had to learn to understand why. I had to understand her fear and what she was holding on to. And that part of it taught me a massive amount of empathy towards people that believe other things, and why. And then I grew to love her, and I think a lot of us did, as we kind of dove in deeper to what was really making her tick that way. And I feel pretty lucky that she's very multifaceted and not just the typical housewife.
Absolutely. And Sonya, for you, I'm curious if you knew from the beginning that Molly was going to get to go to space, because I think
I didn't know that Molly was even alive. I mean, I joined in episode 3, and I got those sides on a Friday, went in, read, got the job, and they said, great, you start on Monday. And
They like to give us a lot of time.
We
A lot of time.
not read a script. I had one scene that I auditioned with, and that was it. And it had come in, and it sounded interesting. And the last job I'd done had been The Catch, which was, you know, Shonda Rhimes, and I played this super glamorous villain tottering around in heels all the time. And so to get this woman who it specifically said over and over, and then the feedback from the agents, not the feedback, the sort of reinforced thing was dress down. Like, you can't dress down enough for this woman. So I really did. Like, I rolled out of bed and pulled on the greenest shirt I could find that would bring out the bags under my eyes, which are there, and walked in and did it. And got the job. So that was great. But I was told it was a guest star. I was told it was a 3-episode guest star, because Molly was supposed to die after 3 episodes. So, so to my fellow actors, I cannot stress this enough. I am the walking, living proof that there is no such thing as a guest star at all. Like, you have to take these things and run with them and give them your all, as though you were, as we all do. But I truly believe, like, you show up as though you are a regular cast member and you do your work. And here I am on season 3. Nobody saw this coming, least of all me. But I don't mean to sort of moralize about it. I just mean it's such a lovely thing, and it's such a lovely accident when that happens, and when you get the opportunity to play someone so other and so unexpected, and to get to keep doing that. You know, they were like, yeah, okay, maybe she's alive. All right, would you come back and do the finale? And I was like, sure. And then season 2, and you know, season 2 is aired, so I can say it now. I'm, you know, irradiated within an inch of my life, and I'm like, all right, it's been fun. I love you all. And they're like, yeah, and you come back for season 3. I'm like, man, this is the gift that keeps on giving. I am down, but at some point, surely, Molly's number is up. But yeah, she's amazing. It's been fun growing. You know, I really empathize with what Shantel was saying. It's not that I judged Molly. I adored her from the jump. But it's been really fun growing to love her more and more as the years have gone by. You know, she was a curiosity to me at the beginning, and now she feels like a really essential piece of who I am. And it's the fun part of our job, is getting to sort of iterate these people and then somehow integrate them too. I think it's a really interesting element.
The other day, Joel gave me hell on set, and he's like, "Do you ever like not think in a Karen brain?" And I was like, "Well, Joel, you normally see me for these 8 months, 7 months that we're shooting, so I'm always in Karen brain mode." Yes, and he's like, "Yeah, but you're just like so deep in it," and I'm like, "How else am I supposed to do this job?"
I love that. And Cynthy and Coral, you joined the show in its second season. I'm curious, were you already a fan of the show or familiar with it? And what interested you in becoming a part of the ensemble and specifically these characters?
You go first, Cynthy. I feel like Cynthy is really dug deep into the show, and I want to hear what she has to say.
Okay, so let's see. The show hadn't launched. The show launched November 2019, and I started working as Kelly October. So I started the job even before it aired. And I found out about it the traditional route, just an audition through my team. And I went in initially to read, and they had like a couple of sides, just conversational sides for Kelly. I was like, oh, this is nice, and I'll go in. And she was written, I think, a few episodes as well. And then for the producer session, they gave me these new sides that I was like, it was episode 3 in season 2. I was like, oh shit, there's a lot going on with her. I want it now. I was like, great. So obviously it was exciting to really get the part, and I was just excited to play Kelly because it's the first time I get to play a Vietnamese American girl. And I am Vietnamese American, and it means a lot to me. And I got to sink my teeth into learning more about the Vietnam War. Growing up, my father fought in the war with along with Americans, and I heard all kinds of stories on his perspective. But then sitting with Matt and Ben, our showrunners, as you know, before my first day shooting, they wanted to sit down and talk about Kelly, and they told me about Operation Baby Lift and how she's an international adoptee from Vietnam. And I was like, wow, I didn't know about Operation Baby Lift. So I was like, I got to do my homework before I show up to set. So I read a couple of books, and I was just super stoked. Super stoked to learn about this whole population of children. Oftentimes we think about war. I didn't think about the children that were affected. Okay. And so it was really, really cool to sink my teeth into Kelly.
I mean, that was a very toned down version. Cynthy's our number one fan.
I was just going to say.
Try to hide it. I'm going to
number one
out
fan of the
this.
show.
I am because after our first cast hang at Shantel's house last year, or my first hang with everybody, I sent everyone unwarranted. No one asked. I sent everyone
chapters.
A character breakdown of my take on each character and their journey on the show, and why I am obsessed with their storyline. And I genuinely mean it. This is the thing. I started watching it when it launched, and I was like, watch a couple episodes to get the tone right, do my homework, and I was like, I was hooked. I was hooked with each narrative. So I'm a super fan. Sonya, I don't know if you were on that texting chain because you weren't able to go to Chantel's, but I'm obsessed with Molly.
I'm going to find it and send it to Sonya. I'm having a hard time not getting my phone right now to be like, I'm going to read
30 minutes to sit and read, you should just, it's the most extensive, beautifully written, detailed, she didn't miss a beat of watching season 1, and
it's like a college thesis. It's like a full, there's a beginning, middle, end, there's sources, it is extensive. Yeah.
She used her MLA handbook.
Oh my God. I cited references. I was very excited because I was a mega fan of season 1. As I was watching, I was obsessed with Aleda Rosales' storyline. And I was like, so when I met Coral, I was like, you're the new Aleda. Totally normal, and I'm like,
I mean, in a way, maybe it's good that you booked the role first before becoming a super fan, or you might have gotten intimidated.
I would have gotten in my head. I would have effed myself over. I would have thought, oh my God, all these people. Yeah. it was meant to be.
Coral, what about for you? Did you also become a super fan, or I guess nobody is as big a fan as Cynthy?
No one, truly no one. I mean, the show, like Cynthia said, the show hadn't come out yet. So I knew nothing about it. I had auditioned, and then 2 weeks later, they said they want to screen test you. And at that point, I had been screen testing for a lot of stuff and not getting it. So I had become like hardened. I become like so cynical. I'm like, whatever, like we'll see what happens. And then the screen test was through my tape. Like I sent an initial tape and they screen tested me from that, which is bizarre. And then I asked, how many people are they screen testing? And my agent was like, do you really want to know? I was like, okay, well, now I want to know. You made it sound, delicious. And he was like, well, it's only you. They're only screen testing you. So like everyone else, I got the role on a Friday. They flew me out that weekend. I started shooting. My first scene was with Wrenn, which was, I'm so grateful for looking back now, because I didn't know anything. I was so nervous. I was scared to ask questions. And Wrenn is, I'll say this as like to prompt, this, Wrenn does not like when I talk about her in front of her. So this will be hard for her. She's like sweating.
I was about to take this out of my ear.
but Wrenn is one of those actors, and it's important on the show, that asks questions. I think I'm sometimes one of those people that I'm like, I'll figure it out. And I kind of just like, I'm in the corner, trying to make it work. And it was so amazing that my first scene was with Wrenn, because Wrenn was like, if you have a question, ask it. Do not feel shy about it. I mean, we're handling like heavy science jargon. We should ask about it. So it was a really fast process. And first scene was the scene where Margot comes to Aleda's trailer, and she's kind of, sees her for the first time. At that point, I hadn't seen the show, so I had to kind of imagine what that would be like, more so than being able to reference it exactly. But kind of like what you said earlier with Cynthy, it was probably good that I didn't see the show before, because Aleda's journey, it is a 180 turn. She is such a different person that it was good that I felt like, okay, I can play it like a different person, rather than feeling this pressure to do what the previous actor did. Really quick process, really easy.
That's interesting, because you're the only actor here whose character was played by a different actor, in the first season. So I wondered if you studied her, but it sounds like you didn't.
I did. I mean, I did as much as I could. There was only at that point, I think, like 2 episodes. But it's, she's like a 9-year-old girl at the time. There's only so much you can study, because no one is the same when they're 9 years old. So they, even when I did have reference, I kind of almost had to just trust the producers and the casting directors to say that, like, what I naturally do is similar to, there is that already connecting thread, and kind of go off of that leap of faith. Because if I tried to mimic even who I was at 13, it's a completely different person. So that, being that it's a 10-year time jump, if it was 5 years, it might be more pressure, but 10 years kind of allows for, especially at that age, for it to be a clean slate.
You nailed it. It's everything I wanted it for Aleda.
It approves.
Yeah, it's everything. I loved it. The toilet paper was genius.
I'm curious, because I know nothing about space travel, but I assume there's a lot of attention to detail, knowing that who the people behind this show are. You kind of joked earlier, or maybe you weren't joking, about an MOA handbook. Do they give you a lot of information? Do you have consultants? Like, is there an astronaut school you sort of get to take a crash course in?
I was talking about the MLA handbook, which is from like high school and college. but to answer your question, yes, they if you want the information, they will give it to you. Yeah, and we have some great technical advisors.
Yeah, Garrett oh gosh, I'm going to butcher his last
Garrett
name.
Reisman.
Reisman? Yeah.
Garrett Reisman is kind of the astronaut in charge. He. I mean, I once again learned this from Wrenn. If you have a technical question, he is the go-to person because he is a literal astronaut. But yeah, like Wrenn said, we have a lot of really well versed in space people on set that help a lot.
And how much does it help when you put on these amazing costumes and, you get into the hair and makeup? How does that help you find your specific character, especially, considering that it's set in the past? But also for Sonya, like for you, how much does it help to step into the spacesuit and really make you feel like an astronaut?
I feel like all the cast are taking a sharp inhale here as Molly prepares to talk about the suit yet again. I hate that suit with a passion that I can't disguise. I hate it. I hate it. I mean, I love it because it gives me something to work with, or gave me something to work with so intensely every time it went on. And the focus that is required, the quiet place I have to go to in order to work in the suit is, honestly, it requires a sort of Zen thing, because when that hood comes on, I'm not claustrophobic, and yet what it is to have that go on, and you're so immobilized. I mean, the suit has a crossbar across it where the oxygen tank would be, and it's not oxygen, but there's a fan in there so that you've got some air circulation, and then you've got giant gloves on that it takes two people to get on and off, so you're essentially immobilized in it. So it's very, very isolating being in the suit. It's incredibly hot. Your movement is so compromised that you can't actually afford, or I can't afford, to expend any extra energy in getting worked up, getting flustered, making small talk, anything. It's so that's where I say, like, where I hated it. And it became my friend, because the focus that it requires in order to stay still and then just do the job became really helpful. That was the thread I would use to sort of, the needle I would use to like thread Molly in to be on the moon, would be like, all right, and this is how focused you would be on the moon, gathering pieces. Then within that became like, and how do I add Molly's swagger within that, so that she's both extraordinarily disciplined and, I'm trying to think of the polite word.
Irreverent?
And not going to take orders from anyone, and not going to take it lightly. So finding some of that suppleness within the discipline of the suit became my real challenge while working with it. And also staying like a decent human being and not just losing my rag with anybody fucking near me. That was also a real challenge.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Karen and Kelly's costumes, actually. Like, I sort of wish I'd been around in that era. Does it really help you to, transform into a character, to step into that clothing?
For me, like, Jill was the head of our wardrobe department in season 1 and season 2. And she's the first person I've ever worked with that understood, for me, who doesn't have to wear suits and jumpsuits, who understood emotional storytelling, and how just the way that creatively we would talk about things. Like when we got in season 1 to episode 8, where I'm in the hospital, I remember going to the shirt that I was wearing, and it was very fragmented, and it almost looked like a kaleidoscope, and it was busy and kind of crazy, and it felt chaotic. And I remember us picking that particular shirt because it was a metaphor for what was going on inside her, down to so many details Jill would think about, from my undergarments being 100% nothing like a suit, but extremely uncomfortable pointy bras that my own bits don't fit into properly. So we'd have to build things, because I don't know how people have cone-shaped boobs, to, undergarments, pantyhose, everything was down to what would it would have authentically been. So I felt every time I stepped into Karen's clothing, especially in season one, I understood her. Season two obviously is a whole different world and realm for her, which it kind of feels like there's its own character in the clothing with, you know, the jeans and the cut off plaid shirts, and you know, you're owning a bar and life is a little bit more easy. And you know, there just is there's a way of emotional storytelling that took it one step deeper because of Jill, and I always commend her for that. And my fittings were maybe some of my favorite time to help enhance the storytelling. Um, I love it because Karen's nothing like me, and her clothing is nothing like me. So it definitely helped me get into Karen's mindset.
And Cynthia, I think I actually own some of those outfits you wear when I was a kid.
Yeah, they were just fun. High waisted jeans, and she had the real vintage Reeboks where I would just kind of go, oh my gosh, it just felt real. I put it on and I felt like a 17-year-old in 1983. She had these fun vintage T-shirts for casual wear, and I think the first thing I did was the softball outfit, which I was like, oh my gosh, I look 12. It was amazing. Like Jill was incredible, and it was just fun. But yeah, the 80s. We couldn't go too crazy. I couldn't be like a mall girl, but it was definitely 80s.
I mean, I don't even know if you were alive in the 80s. So did people sort of have to explain this to you?
I watched a lot of the movies in the 80s, all of like the Brat Pack. I watched.
Oh, sure.
So I definitely know the scrunchies. I think I asked Tina, I was like, can I have a scrunchie, like a crazy one? She's like, that's not her show for me. I'm like, okay.
You know, I was talking before we started about how much I love seeing people of color and women in space. And Coral and Wrenn, like, you might be the smartest people at NASA, you know, and that's so exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, is it special to you to get to represent, you know, kind of the best of the best in a series like this?
Coral, do you want to?
Sure, yeah. You know, Aleda is a funny character because she's like book smart, but socially just has no idea how to interact with a human. And so, which is funny because a lot of the people on set who are like Michael Lakuta, who is on set, he one time came up to me and was like, your character means a lot to me. And I was like, oh my God, thank you, Michael. And he said, yeah, I connect with the level of both genius and also like not knowing how to be a team player. So it's cool to play a character that has both, because I think the reality of people who commit their lives to something like space is that there is sometimes that push and pull between personal life and work, because you love your work so much. So it's very it's exciting to play a character like that is such a genius in one way and dumb as rocks in another way.
I would add that to our group, I would add Molly Cobb though too, because I think to be an astronaut, you have to be incredibly smart and resourceful and willing to risk a lot. I think they say it quite a bit in the first season about like you're strapping yourself to something that has the power of like a nuclear bomb. It's so powerful. But I think, I don't know, in my mind, I think in like the JSC mission control, definitely Aleda and Margot, but I feel like on the astronaut side, Molly Cobb, like she's the person that's like going to be your MVP, that's going to think of like the most out of the box thing, and will also be irreverent enough to say, I'm going to keep going. I don't care if you tell me it's time to stop. I decide. I think it's really fun, especially being a lady, that it's fun to play a character where you don't really care about what men think about you. You know, I think early on, Margot has to think about that a little bit because the gender norms are such that, you know, there are jokes about, you know, like, you're not, you know, I'm not going to give you this job and you're going to go off and get married and have a baby, are you? And, you know, it's lovely to me that, you know, as a woman in the late 1960s, that, you know, Margot's the person on the show that's like, I don't want that life. Like, I really love my job. I just want to do my job. Like, that's the thing that interests me. I mean, I have a secret hobby, but I love doing this work, and I'm kind of single-minded about that. And that, you know, for her, as far as like dudes are considered, it's just about like, I have to get better at interacting with people that I work with, because if I don't, I'm never going to get where I want to get. But I just love that she's all about like meritocracy when the audience kind of first meets her. You know, like, that's what she respects, is if you can do the work and you're good at the work and you work hard. That's the thing that impresses her. And I feel like, you know, so often I wouldn't disparage any of these roles, because I feel like I'm so happy to be working whenever I'm working, but it's just nice to play a character. I mean, I feel like it's the same for Aleda and Molly too. And, you know, all of us have such singular storylines that I think are their own thing. And that's a wonderful thing about our show. But I feel particularly, you know, about those three women that are in NASA. And it's kind of like, if somebody's along for the ride, then great. But I would also possibly leave you in a heartbeat for just my job. I don't know. It was just, it's one of maybe the second times in my career where I'm just like, this character exists all alone. Like, and they're there to be there because they have something important to do, and it's not dependent on a man's storyline. And I think at this point, almost everybody in our show is at that place, but I don't know. I just really like that. I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna stop.
I love that the show, you know, at the end of season 2, finale, was Great Peril on the Moon, and the JSC is entirely run by women. So Margot's calling it, Aleda's calling it, Molly's dealing with Gordo. And Jodie makes the call that we should get together in space. I'm paraphrasing horribly, but this is, and what I love is that we all looked around at one moment and realized that the whole of NASA was being run by women at that point, and that it was not commented on within the show. We commented on it as a cast. The show does not congratulate itself on its promotion of women. We do when we do press. The press do when they write about it. The show is so, what's the word? Honorable, to my mind, in the truthfulness of like, yeah, we're going to shuffle history around and put women at the top. And we're not going to congratulate ourselves on doing it. We're just going to do it.
Like, it's just normal. Like, this is
an alternate version, man. And I really love the restraint of that. It seems to me like I have no other word for it. Honorable. And I applaud Matt and Ben and Ron for conceiving of it, for continuing in that vein.
Yeah, it's such a natural progression. Is they create such, there's so much patience in building that it feels just like a really natural progression that, yeah, I don't even feel like, I feel like it would be, it's an afterthought to think, oh, and then those are all women, rather than, no, those are all the people who are like just most qualified to be in that position. Right. So like Sonya said, yeah, there's something very honorable about that level of patience and the not rewarding oneself for doing something that is just kind of, yeah, a natural progression.
Well, they say sci-fi is really good at showing us how things should be. So that's one of the things I love about it. And obviously season 2 ends with another time jump, like at the end of season 1. I cannot wait to see where season 3 is going. I'm assuming you all can't tell me anything. Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, okay, actually, I wouldn't want to know because I look forward to finding out. But I want to remind everyone that all of seasons 1 and 2 are now available on Apple TV Plus. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your process with your fellow actors. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.